Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Guest today, Rachel Otukol. Rachel, please tell us where you're calling in from and what you do for a living.
I am calling in from Victoria, BC, and my main job is actually a driver examiner.
Oh, very cool. And tell me about your Moringa Tea brand that you've been growing. I know we just talked a little bit about off the air here since 2015. So can you tell us about, what got you interested in this space? And also just kind of walk me up to what was like the big catalyst for you to turn this idea that you had for this into a full-blown brand and business this way?
As I was saying, my dad worked in forestry for the government. And through his forestry network, he connected me with someone named Gary Brook, who was growing moringa with subsistence farmers in various countries, but we're specific in Africa, but we're specifically talking about Zambia. So the subsistence farmers had become so proficient at growing moringa that they were looking for different ways to expand their market access. So they came to me, approached me with the idea, and I decided to investigate making tea. So I got into the lab, which was my home. And I grabbed fresh ingredients, started dehydrating and blending and mixing. I was importing the moringa leaves from the farmers myself, blending it. And at the time, I was doing individual tea bags. So I was hand packaging and scooping into those individual tea bags at the time. But I loved what I was doing and it was rewarding. So it was worth the effort.
Yeah, that's awesome. And tell me a little bit more about this moringa tea. I mean, from what I've learned about it, I know it has some benefits insofar as it can lower your cholesterol. It can help with just general like artery clogging. It can kind of help with those types of things. But you're the expert in moringa tea, clearly. So tell us a little bit more about the benefits of moringa tea and a little bit just the general info about that. Because I'll be honest, when we scheduled for the podcast today, this is the first time I've heard of moringa tea. I know looking into it, see there's great many benefits there. Well, yeah, I mean, can you tell me a little bit more about some of the benefits of this tea and how it's different than maybe a traditional green tea or black tea or things that, maybe people typically consume?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a shame that it isn't more popular. Again, from 2015 until now, I really expected it to blow up because of all the amazing health properties. So it's actually higher in antioxidants than green tea. There has been research done, and I should say it's preliminary research because it's sort of new to North America. We haven't studied it as well, but in the indigenous regions where it's known, it's very popular and very nutritious. So in terms of the antioxidant, it can help with fighting cancer. It lowers blood sugar, blood pressure, cholesterol. So people have been using it to manage their blood sugar and getting off of medication. I use it as an anti-inflammatory predominantly. It's a very powerful anti-inflammatory. So I have issues with my back and it helps with that. I have a customer who had issues with an inflamed prostate and he said that he will drink the tea and within a minute notice improvement.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy. The vitamin and nutritional profile is so extensive. It's such a huge list that I can't memorize it, but such an amazing list of vitamins and minerals that in Africa, they use it in feeding programs for children. And it really helps combat malnutrition because it's just one plant and you get so many nutrients. It has all the amino acids your body needs.
That's amazing. And I'm surprised it hasn't blown up more either. I mean, this has been obviously a big kind of, I think like consumer want is like, looking for alternatives to their typical teas that are just filled with so much caffeine or even coffee. I think people are trying to look for, alternatives like this. So I am surprised just as much as you are that this hasn't kind of blown up more. So tell me a little bit about, I guess, your general strategy for, obviously with something like this, kind of a novel, well, I shouldn't say novel, but just kind of a newer upcoming, type of tea maybe people haven't heard of before. So there's obviously an aspect of consumer education with a product like this, maybe people haven't heard of before. What do you generally try to do with, I see on the website, good amount of information. I clicked on a few of the products is actually really helpful, even just looking around the website. I was just see you have some things obviously like listed against the products. What other mechanisms do you use to, keep consumers informed with new things, new information that comes out about this type of tea and, what you obviously just learned in your own right?
Largely, it's the trade shows. So I've tried to put out information through social media, but the algorithm has changed so much that it's really hard to contact people. Mm-hmm. So it's trade shows that are specified to specific genres. So I do the health show in Victoria and a women's show. And it's interesting because I'll ask everybody if they've heard of moringa. And at the health show, it's about 20%. And the women's show this year, it was maybe 40% of people that had heard about it. So you would expect the health community to be informed.
Right.
I'm thinking about doing a talk because there is a guest speaker stage at those shows and actually doing presentations to get the information out there a little better. But just the volume of people at these type of trade shows, I've noticed gets me the best traction.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what do you typically tell people, like somebody comes up and asks you like, what makes this tea better? I mean, I know we already talked about it a little bit, but you compare it to like a typical tea, even like a decaffeinated tea. And also I wanted to ask too, I noticed that all the products on the website are decaffeinated. So is that because of a process that you do? Did you want to make it that way? Or is this type of tea just naturally not caffeinated?
Moringa is naturally caffeine free.
Gotcha.
So I'm thinking about in the future doing moringa and green tea blend for people who want that. But the process for moringa leaves is very simple. And I think that's why it's such a great product, because the leaves have to be shade dried ideally. If they're dried in the sun, you'll get some nutrient loss in that process. So the farmers just pick the leaves and set it aside in a room, and that's it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So are you actually growing it in BC now, or are you still importing most of the ingredients for now? And if you are still importing it all, do you have plans to try to cultivate it here, or is that even possible?
I do have plans to cultivate it, not here, because it grows well in dry, hot regions.
Gotcha.
Most of the moringa that you'll find is imported from India currently. Mine is as well, because that's where my manufacturer gets it from. I'm hoping to actually start subsistence farming operation myself, because I got into the business in the first place because it was, putting more money in the hands of subsistence farmers. I felt like because I was able to sort of shrink down how many hands were changed through the packaging and distribution and all that I could pay those farmers more. So I ultimately would like to get back to that, but it's got to be close to the equator.
Oh, it really has to be like that far south. So it would have to be like South America, more than likely.
Yeah, it's very popular in regions like the Philippines, India, various countries in Africa, Jamaica, and it's native to Indonesia. So the dry, hot countries.
Gotcha. And then I guess it's obviously a huge industry where your father was working, and I know in India, I've heard of it maybe one other time from somebody who was actually from India on a different podcast. I think actually it might have been the actual first time I heard of it, but now that you said that, it kind of triggered me remembering that. So what are kind of typical uses that people use of this tea? Is it big products that are like types of drinks that are made with this type of tea in other parts of the world, or is it typically just a tea that's consumed in its own right?
So in Victoria, there have actually been a few other tea companies that I've noticed, but they're no longer in production. So it's come in and out. And most of the product that you can get here in terms of moringa is powder, which in my opinion is not palatable. It's not delicious. When the leaves are intact, you can make a tea out of it. I know in the Philippines, they use it for a lot of things. A customer was telling me at the last trade show that they have a moringa pizza where it's incorporated in the crust. They pick the fresh leaves and pop it into soups and stews. They use it for everything. Lots of product. But here, I think there's one or two other companies that I know of that have moringa incorporated as a tea, but it's not necessarily their only product line. It's just an addition.
Right. Just wanted to ask, because I just keep looking around the website. I love the website. I love the look of the product. I also love this Moringa Tea Cocktails ebook. That really caught my eye. Is that something you're looking to kind of expand on more as like a use case, or if somebody buys? Is that something that you'll like ship along if somebody buys like a certain amount or anything like that? Because that's quite interesting. I've not had many tea-based cocktails, but it's quite intriguing to me.
It was a use. I was trying to get creative in increasing the use. Because my sales are great in the wintertime, but they sort of peter out in the summer. And there are so many more uses, like cold brewing and then incorporating it into your summertime cocktail drink. So it is not, there is a physical copy that you can get, but it's only through Amazon KDP currently. I would have to print out a collection, and possibly in the future, it's just they're not currently popular enough for me to do it that way. But the digital download I have offered as a free item. Yeah.
Gotcha. That was super cool. I was about to download it just for the sake of just seeing what's in there, because it's really, really interesting. I mean, I don't do a lot of tea-based cocktails. I just don't think it's something that's really made in many places, but yeah, it's quite intriguing. But yeah, I like that. It's very creative. I mean, there seems to be a ton of use cases. So yeah, that's really interesting. And let me ask you this too. I guess I'm just curious a little bit about the general revenue channels that you're operating in. In the CPG space, obviously, there's a ton of variability. Some people do have almost all their eggs in the basket of wholesale and do very little online sales. Sometimes people go viral on social media and it goes a complete other direction. All they do is D2C through TikTok Shop and things. So where do you kind of find yourself carving out revenue channels? Where are you seeing like the most success and most growth right now?
I set this business up initially to be predominantly online, but the sales weren't supporting me continuing to do that, putting all my eggs in that basket. So I have investigated wholesale, but by far, my greatest revenue channels are at the trade shows, farmers market, in the situations where I'm able to speak to people and explain, because that education piece is so necessary for this product that once I begin talking about it, then people become excited. And also in a situation where I'm able to give samples and taste it, because it tastes great. It really is a delicious product. At the end of the day, people associate health with, oh, this is another thing that I have to suffer through. Not necessarily.
Yeah, right. Case. Yeah, I know a lot of people get into wholesale kind of at the early stages where the work with the retailers or the grocers are able to do, kind of samples within the store as well. And that's something I could see this like being a huge opportunity if you're able to get into, larger retail to do sampling in the stores. I think it would be huge for this, because I think it's true. I mean, there's a lot of incoming kind of things in this space, different types of teas, a lot of people have never heard of. It's like, what's this new? No, it's this new one now. But yeah, that's awesome. I definitely see that. And how do you kind of find you're thinking about about how vital it is for your brand and kind of message to have some education attached to it. What have you tried on the digital side to try to do that? I mean, I know you said you posted some on socials, but what other things are you looking to employ to kind of increase the engagement with the educational side of this product?
I know that I need to increase my email marketing, but I know from personal experience, I am so tired of receiving emails.
Right.
So I imagine that other customers are feeling the same way. The other thing that I've been adding is blogging. And I know that I need to do that more regularly to get some traction there. And then that will draw people into the sales aspect of my website. But the thing that I'm investigating new is doing not necessarily in a sales environment, but going out to speaking events and speaking engagement.
So you're really trying to just double down on this educational side of things. You're really just like, can see that with a product like this. Yeah, I quite like that perspective. And so what kind of like speaking engagements do you find as opportunities? I know you mentioned trade shows. Have you explored doing anything like a college, or like what other opportunities are out there for speaking engagements? Is that something you really wanted to do on a regular basis?
A college, I haven't, but that is a good suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah.
But for other people in health and wellness spaces where they have, sort of a collective or Zoom conference, those are very easy to implement and get attached to and then educate people that way. I was initially just joining networking group. Again, not necessarily a sales environment, but you explain what you're doing and the pitch comes up. And I have gotten interest that way and it's led to other partnerships.
Yeah, I think it's a great perspective. And a lot of people that come on the podcast, they talk about how long it took before they really figured out like what channels really work for them. And sometimes it's 10 years, sometimes it's 15 years, sometimes product development can even take that long. So as I'm sure from personal experience, CPG brands, it's kind of a slow burn. And I think you're doing the right things because I think people can kind of forget how important it is to go out and actually do things in person. And email can be kind of fleeting today. Everybody gets a million emails to their inboxes. It's definitely true. But even still, those kind of just like baseline things that were had gone away during COVID. And I think people you're still kind of getting away from. I think there's a lot more value there than a lot of people give it credit for. I think people go a little bit too digital sometimes with all of their marketing and their messaging. And it can be kind of a red ocean of other messaging and it just gets caught up in. So I quite like your perspective on that and doing like real in-person like speaking engagements for something like this. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And to add to that, I've found that some of these indirect engagement, it may have taken 2 or 3 years, but I've had touchbacks and contacts back down the road that have led to other things. So they have been important in pushing my business forward.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely see that. And so the only other channel I wanted to ask about, because it's something that I don't find, I feel like a lot of people kind of have this like hesitation with it, but have you been approached with any like kind of private labeling or like white labeling deals with your product at all? And is that something you'd be open to exploring if the opportunity presented itself?
I haven't. I don't want to explore that at this time because I know that I've started this in 2015, but I'm fortunately still in a niche.
Right.
So I kind of want to take that attention to myself as much as I can.
Right.
And
no, I can definitely see that.
The blends that I created are ones that I made by hand. So I know that a manufacturer is doing it now, but to the specifications that I originally had when I was hand making it. So I love the idea that nobody else has this taste, this blend, this flavor that I have.
Yeah, I mean, when you have something as proprietary as this is, I mean, with the type of tea in general, I mean, it's so niche still right now. And obviously the specific blends that you're doing are so proprietary. It might not make sense. Yeah, there's definitely not this early on. Maybe 10, 15 years down the road, everybody's making this amazing tea now and it's a huge industry. It might make sense. But for now, I think that's probably correct. I mean, you would know better than me, but for sure, I think that definitely makes sense. And there's one question I always love to ask everybody that comes on the podcast. If you could go back to 2015 when you started the brand at its inception, if you could give yourself one piece of advice, business, personal, everything you've learned this whole almost 10-year journey now, what do you think that one piece of advice would be?
So hard to say. There were mistakes that were made, but I wouldn't correct them necessarily because I learned so much through them that I would just say stick with it. I was more stressed out about the outcome than I needed to be. And I could have enjoyed the process a little more and just be tenacious. Keep trying. When a door closes, just try to find another door.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. And I think it's good advice. And I think it's any new entrepreneurs, I mean, nobody say new in the sense of age, but just, somebody off on maybe a venture project for the first time. Something I hear a lot. Sometimes I get answers to that question. People say, if I could go back, how about just don't do it? But it's always in a joking way. It's like, obviously it's a labor of love. It's your thing. You made these blends by hand. It takes a lot of time. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a don't do it, but no, actually, no, I wouldn't change it for the world. It kind of exactly like what you're saying. So I definitely get that. And I think it's an important perspective to just say, like, everybody goes through this, regardless of what you see on social media and what you hear people on podcasts, their overnight success and how rich they are and all this stuff. All these things, it takes time, no matter what. I mean, if it was a 10-year process and then you did have overnight success, like, you're never going to hear about those 10 years leading up to it, right? So, all these little things along the way. And that's why I love, these types of insights from, business owners like yourself and other people that come on the podcast to really open this dialogue and like make sure people understand that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It rarely is. It's hard. It takes time. And one of the best quotes I heard from somebody that came on the podcast was that mistakes are answers to future questions or future problems. It's something you know internally, but I think just the way that was like enunciated to me was so profound to me. It's like, it's so true, because we do something for long enough, like there's going to kind of be recurring problems, like packaged a little bit differently. And so the more things you can go through, the more well-equipped you're going to be to deal with them the next time that it happens, right? So you should be grateful even for those things. I mean, it's hard to be all the time, like when it's happening, but just maintain that perspective, I think, throughout, as you can reflect on back and things you've gone through, I think is really healthy. So I appreciate that very much.
What I would add after what you said about for entrepreneurs being in the same boat was that I would seek out more testimonials from people who have gone through the process and hearing what their early stages were like for that extra encouragement.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's not unusual.
No, it's very much not unusual. And that's why I appreciate our conversation so much, because a lot of people may go through the same things, and you can't learn everything up front. If you hear something from, a conversation on this podcast that kind of prompts you to be like, okay, like I might be in the midst of 19 problems, but I heard Rachel on the podcast with Matt talking about the same thing, and maybe like 9 other podcasts. Everybody seems to say the same thing. Like, I know I'm still probably okay. So yeah, I think that's really valuable. I appreciate that. And also just want to give you an opportunity to, shout out your website, any socials you want people to know about. People want to learn more about this type of tea. People want to keep in touch with you, get in touch with you, let people know how to keep in touch with you guys.
Yeah, well, the website is the main contact point. It's maishatea.com, maishatea.com. Emails are on there. info@maishatea.com is the email address. I am on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Pinterest, and Facebook. So I'm happy to reach out. It goes directly to my phone. So send me a message. I will answer you, and it will be me personally.
Awesome. Well, Rachel, I just want to say thank you again. I really appreciate your time and coming on, and wish you the best of luck and future success.
Thank you. Nice chatting with you.
You too. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.